Hi there, and welcome to this question and answer session following our podcast last week with Qmed Anderson, where we highlighted the issues, the topics of importance as a small enterprise within the medical device space, what to focus on and where to prioritize. So I hope you enjoyed it and that it gave value. And we have received a lot of very good questions from you, so thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. I also received a lot of very nice feedbacks on the content. So thank you both from myself and from Qmed. So really happy about that. So let's jump to the questions. We have picked 4 questions for today. And let me know in case that there is something else that you would like us to touch upon, and then feel free to still send questions to us that we can address. I will then get back to you per email. So we will answer all the questions that we get. So let's jump into it. So I've discussed the questions with Gert, so I'll take them here and then and answer them, and let's do it. Here the first question from one of our listeners. Being a small company with funding in place, although it's limited, we have a brand new idea within the medical device space, a new technology. What would be your first 3 priorities to attack? Well, that's a super good question. First of all, it's always key to define your indication for use for your product. Basically, first of all, are you a device? The indication for use, what is the product going to be used for? What is the classification of that use of the device? And what is the conformity assessment route that you then are going to follow? Conformity assessment route is according to the regulation, the pathway that you will need to follow to get your product to the market. So that is specified both per indication per use and also the classification and the way that you want to structure the company. So a lot of things influence on that. Beside that, you should draw up a development plan. So that's the way that the whole quality management and system and also the standards are built up. You need to have plans for most things, and it's always good very early stage, you can always update, is to have a design and development plan to define your overall milestone, the resources, the budget. You can put a lot of things in this document, and you can also keep it very simple, but important document to keep track on. And then last, you need to, or not last, but the third priority that both Gert and I agreed upon that's important is to define the test that you need to fulfill the requirement. So what is the verification, design verification you need to go through, and also the design validation. So 3 top things: get the specifications in place, about the classifications, conformity assessment, and indication for use. And of course, is it a device? We have a lot of products which are in the middle. And then the design plan, and then put your verification test plan together. First question, first answer. Second one, how to pick the right contract manufacturer that aligns with the various aspects of your product, and how to monitor the contract manufacturer after you selected them. So a lot of small companies, medical device companies, they work with contract manufacturing organizations that helps them along the way. I know, for instance, Qmed Anderson works in companies where he's basically a one-man band, and then he works with CMOs and CROs and other contract laboratories to get his products to the market. So discussing this with Gert, there are definitely some things that you need to keep an eye on when you work with contract manufacturers, and that is get your design inputs in place, And then you should set up both internally an SOP for your supplier selection and also evaluation, and you should stick to it. And last, you should of course have a contract in place, which is specified in your SOP, but also in the contract you should specify what's actually what is they're actually going to do, when are they successful, and when are you going to audit them to be able to see that they actually achieve what they promised. So key things to keep an eye on. Third question, how did you as a small enterprise interact with the FDA and what was the outcome? And this is quite interesting because we previously had a podcast with Semi Oktay, who's the FDA specialist in US that we are working with, and it aligns very well with the feedback that we also got from Simi. So here the answer that I discussed with Gert. So basically interact early on with the FDA is the recommendation. Get a pre-submission in place and discuss your concept or your test plan or whatever it is with the FDA to get the feedback. Do this on a very early stage, and then align according to the feedback that you get from the FDA. So they give a very comprehensive and detailed feedback, which is extremely valuable. So and it's of course you need to prepare and spend time on doing this properly, because you also need to have solid answers back, and therefore you need to provide a good material to the FDA to get good answers. So keep that in mind. But very important to have that early stage. Good. Rushing on to the fourth question. I promised to keep within 10 minutes, so I'm really trying my best. How do you as a small enterprise prepare for the changes coming with the MDR? So again, discussing with Gert, again, being in a small company, for me, MDR is, of course, there are things which are doable, but it's also a lot of things. It's quite overwhelming sometimes what needs to be done. So how does he manage that in a small company? So here's the recipe that he followed. So he do some tabletop research, including studying the new MDR. Good advice: read what's actually in the MDR. I find it that very, the text is good. There are some things which of course still are not defined, but otherwise I think it's quite detailed and easy to understand. Then confirm with a regulatory consultant that you are on the right track, that you understand the MDR. Of course it's legal language, so it can be a tricky thing to really understand what's in there, how to interpret that. So consult with your regulatory specialist. Then perform a gap analysis, and based on your gap analysis, prioritize and make your action item list based on that. So I could not agree more. That's the way to go. There is no way around it. So start working according to the MDR. It's coming, and also small companies can do this. So these were the answers to the question this week. I hope that brought some values, and greetings here from my home office. And I'll speak to you next time. Bye bye.